Hello, so today I will be talking about a ransomware attack committed by NetWalker Ransomware on the University of California at San Francisco. So a ransomware attack is where the target data is encrypted, a ransom is demanded, and the victim is left with few choices but to pay it in order to get their data back. The specific attacker was the NetWalker ransomware gang, and the target was the University of California, San Francisco's medical school. What happened was the data on the servers was being encrypted, and the IT staff noticed this in an attempt to halt progress by unplugging computers there. Luckily, these servers were separate from the university's main network. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the information that was stolen, the school felt compelled to pay the $1.14 million ransom in the form of Bitcoin in order to get back the decryption key for their information. And this all occurred on June 1st, 2020. So for some background, the NetWalker ransomware gang is a group who contributes or facilitates ransomware attacks as a service in return for a payment. They have encouraged other cyber criminals on the dark web to become affiliates with them in order to spread more malware. Originally, their operation was focused on widespread attacks through spam emails, but now they are focusing more on large public targets like universities or healthcare facilities. What they do is exploit machines that enable remote desktop in order to conduct brute force attacks in order to obtain the login credentials of administrators. Other routes they may use include VPNs and web applications. So the protections that the University of California at San Francisco originally had was a system called Rubric, which they obtained in August 2019. This system was used for their data protection and backup storage. However, this security software was not integrated into the medical school servers yet. So that is why these servers were able to be attacked. The attack vector starts with gaining unauthorized access to the servers, which in this case it was unclear as to how they did it, but their past actions indicate that they use publicly known programs to infiltrate large networks and obtain administrator credentials and privileges. After gaining unauthorized access, the attacker is able to encrypt files on the disk with malware, and then they remove any backup files from the network. In this case, NetWalker used the stolen data as proof of the attack in order to justify their ransom demand, and this rendered the victim unable to access their own data. Therefore, the school in this case was left with few options but to pay the requested ransom. What the attackers did also was demand that the ransom be paid within a time span of up to 6 days. For this attack, the school was able to hire a cybersecurity expert that began a negotiation process with the NetWalker ransomware gang and was able to bring the ransom down from $3 million to $1.14 million. What investigators for the school have found so far is that the NetWalker ransomware gang was not specifically targeting this school, but because of the aforementioned vulnerabilities and lack of protections on the medical school servers, they became a target. While not a direct motivation, we do know that cybercriminals such as NetWalker have been taking advantage of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ways in which that has affected different businesses, schools, and healthcare facilities. Specifically in 2020, attacks on the healthcare system made up about 51% of all security breaches in the first quarter alone. Another important note is that around the same time as this attack, NetWalker ransomware gang was also targeting Michigan State University and Columbia College of Chicago, which I will talk about more later. One of the consequences of this attack is that now the university is having to work with investigators and cybersecurity consultants to regain and repair their medical school's servers. The university, in a statement to all of their faculty and students, noted that the encrypted information was important to some of the academic work that they pursue. Therefore, we know that it was a key concern for the university to be able to gain back access to the stolen information. For the primary victims, no confidential information was stolen or threatened to be released. There are also no known secondary victims. However, a tertiary casualty might be that this raises concerns for whether the university handles their information carefully enough, and it puts into question why they hadn't yet put protections using the rubric system on the medical school's servers. This attack highlights the increased danger that medical care facilities and institutions doing COVID-19 research face during the pandemic. While patients were not secondary victims here, it does raise concerns about how detrimental this kind of attack could have been if it had hindered patient care, especially during the month of June when the pandemic was seeing exponential rises in cases. In conclusion, it is least favorable to pay the ransom because it incentivizes the attacker to commit subsequent attacks. The attacker now sees that they will be rewarded for their crimes, and they may ask for more money in any future attacks. It also does not guarantee that the attacker will uphold their side of the promise after you've already paid the money. So you have to put into question how much you can actually trust a cyber criminal. When looking at the attacks that happened around the same time at Michigan State University and Columbia College of Chicago, we know that both resisted paying the ransom, although it is not clear and has not been disclosed as to how they avoided this. The difference is that both of these schools were threatened with the exposure of their constituents' private information, and this would be a violation of confidentiality. On the other hand, the information taken from UCSF was deemed important for their contributions to the community, and it was valuable for their academic pursuits. I want to reiterate here the distinction that one attack involved the violation of availability, while the other two attacks involved violating confidentiality. I would argue that the type of information stolen and the security violations here probably influenced the way that the schools responded, and why the University of California, San Francisco felt the need to pay the ransom instead of looking for a way around it. What can be done to minimize or prevent a ransomware attack? First, high-risk targets could do a risk analysis, which involves calculating the probability of attack, which we know because of a pandemic that there are more likely to be attacks. And also we can calculate the impact, cost of control, and expected costs. Finally, we can implement stronger security systems ahead of time. The benefits of doing this over paying a ransom is that it discourages cyber criminals from committing ransomware attacks, and it also is not risking the loss or exposure of other people's information. My first question for the class is, what are some ways in which the attack vector for a ransomware attack may vary from the one I stated previously? And my second question is, Consider the execution and response to ransomware attacks. What factors allow ransomware attacks to remain a prevalent and effective form of attack?